By day, Jack Turner is invisible, a janitor working the graveyard shift in a gleaming skyscraper he could never dream of owning. But one night, everything changes. A fire breaks out on the 28th floor of Brightcore Enterprises, and while alarms fail and smoke thickens, Jack charges into the flames. He rescues a mysterious woman barely clinging to life. The next morning, the world finds out who she is. Elena Harper, the billionaire founder of the very company Jack mops floors for. Jack never expected thanks, he never expected fame, and he certainly never expected to be pulled into a world of luxury, corporate secrets, and a dangerous conspiracy brewing beneath the marble floors. As Elena recovers, the two form an unlikely bond, one shaped not by wealth or status, but by courage, honesty, and the raw truth of survival. But someone wanted Elena dead, and the closer Jack gets to the truth, the more dangerous his new life becomes. He was just cleaning up messes. Now he's uncovering the biggest one of all. The office was a palace of glass and steel, silent, empty, and gleaming under fluorescent lights. Floor after floor of spotless desks, untouched coffee mugs, and forgotten sticky notes stretched upward into the sky, waiting for the next workday to breathe life into them again. But down in the service corridor behind the executive elevators, the hum of an old vacuum cleaner broke the silence. Jack Turner, 56, moved like a man with nowhere to be but here, dressed in faded coveralls with his ID badge swinging from a frayed lanyard. He pushed the vacuum along the 27th floor hallway like he had for the past 9 years. Same rhythm, same route, the same smudges near the same door handles. He didn't mind. The routine had its comfort. Jack wasn't paid to notice much, just to clean. But he noticed everything. The crack in the wall near the corner office. The flicker in the overhead light outside conference room B. The expensive whiskey bottle someone had hidden behind the ficus near the boardroom. And tonight, something else. A smell. At first it was faint, almost like someone microwaving popcorn too long down in the staff lounge. But the scent grew sharper, burnt plastic and something sour, acrid, chemical. Jack turned off the vacuum. He sniffed the air, not popcorn. His eyes narrowed. He walked toward the executive wing, 28th floor. That was the CEO's level, normally locked, normally dark. But tonight a sliver of light leaked from under the double glass doors, shimmering faintly through the smoke rising just above the carpet. Smoke. His old instincts kicked in. Before working at Brightcore, Jack had been a volunteer firefighter back in Indiana. Long time ago, but muscle memory doesn't forget. He dropped the vacuum, yanked the service phone off the wall, and dialed building security. Security, came a sleepy voice. This is Jack, janitor on 27. I got smoke rising from 28. Something's burning. Sprinklers haven't kicked in. You sure? I'm positive. I'm heading up. Wait for emergency. But Jack had already hung up. He took the service stairs 2 at a time. At his age, it hurt, but adrenaline's a funny drug. He pushed open the fire door to 28 and stepped into a thickening haze. It was quiet, too quiet. The executive suite was plush, dark wood, glass partitions, designer chairs, but now the air shimmered with heat, and smoke was curling like gray snakes along the ceiling. Jack pulled his bandana up over his nose and moved low. His eyes scanned the area. A scorched outlet sparked near the kitchenette. Some papers smoldered on a desk. Then he heard it. Coughing. He followed the sound to the far end of the suite. A corner office, door closed, smoke swirling behind the frosted glass. He banged on it. No response, just more coughing. Locked. He didn't hesitate. He backed up, kicked hard once, twice. On the third try, the lock snapped and the door burst inward. The smoke inside was blinding, but through it he saw her, a woman, maybe in her late 30s or 40s, slumped behind a desk. She wasn't dressed like any office worker he'd seen. Sleek black blazer, diamond studs, and a scar on her right hand, a long, jagged one. She was barely conscious. "Ma'am!" Jack rushed to her. She looked up at him, dazed, tried to speak, failed. "I got you," he said, more to himself than to her. He pulled off his outer jacket and wrapped it around her, shielding her face. Then, lifting her with surprising strength, he carried her out through the smoke. By the time they hit the stairwell, alarms finally began to wail. Water rained down somewhere above, but not in time. Jack made it to the ground floor just as emergency responders swarmed in. EMTs took the woman. Firefighters stormed the building. Security tried to question him, but he brushed them off. "Just doing my job," he muttered, catching his breath outside the glowing entrance. Sirens howled, flames flickered above. Jack sat on the curb, staring up at the tower he'd cleaned for almost a decade, now burning at the top like a candle. He didn't even know her name. He didn't need to. Not yet. But everything in his life had just changed, and he didn't even know it. The next morning, Jack woke to the distant growl of sirens still echoing in his ears. He lay on his creaky cot in the tiny studio apartment he called home. Bare walls, one folding chair, a kettle that whistles when it wanted to, not when it should. He sat up slowly, sore in every muscle. Smoke still clung to his clothes. He'd slept in them. He usually didn't have dreams, but last night he had one. Her face, framed by smoke and panic, barely lit by the flicker of flames. That woman, whoever she was. He turned on the old radio perched on his windowsill, hoping to distract himself with weather or sports. But instead, he heard her name. Female executive pulled from Brightcore fire late last night. Identity remains unknown. His hand hovered over the dial. Fire suppression systems failed to activate. Authorities are investigating a potential system breach. Sources say the woman remains in critical condition. He shut the radio off, just sat there thinking. Brightcore hadn't called. No one had. He wasn't expecting a medal, but he figured someone might at least check in. Security had taken his name, but nothing more. Maybe that was for the best. Still, something didn't sit right. That smoke had come on fast. Too fast. Jack had seen fires before, accidents, electrical shorts, kitchen mishaps. This wasn't one of those. The smell, the way it spread, the silence of the alarms, it all added up to something more deliberate. And the woman being up there, that late, alone, he rubbed his temple. Maybe he was overthinking it, or maybe he'd seen too much. He showered, pulled on a clean pair of coveralls, and caught the early bus back to the office. Not to work, just to look. But the skyscraper was cordoned off now. Police tape, fire marshals, yellow jackets everywhere. News vans lined the block, their satellite dishes pointing skyward like metal flowers. Jack kept his head down, avoided cameras. He wasn't ready to talk. He circled around the back, down the alley where deliveries came in. A maintenance worker he recognized, Luis, stood smoking behind a dumpster. "Hey," Jack greeted. Luis narrowed his eyes. "You were here last night?" Jack nodded. "You pulled her out?" "Guess so." Luis whistled. "They're saying she was some kind of top exec. Big deal. Not just anybody." "You know who she is?" Luis shrugged. "No one does. Name sealed. Real hush-hush. All I know is someone doesn't want it getting out." That confirmed it. Something was off. and Jack, like it or not, was now in the middle of it. The smoke had filled the room so thick it felt like swimming in tar. Jack didn't remember the details, just heat, chaos, and the weight of her body in his arms. The news reports played the scene like a drama. Unnamed hero saves woman from office inferno. One blurry still from the security cam showed Jack kicking open the door. Another, pixelated, caught his silhouette carrying her down the stairwell. He'd told no one, not his neighbor, not the old veteran who played chess with him on Saturdays, not even his estranged daughter who hadn't picked up his calls in months. But the city now knew his name. A reporter ambushed him outside his building the next day. "Mr. Turner, can we get a word? Did you know who she was?" Jack looked at the camera, tired and squinting. "No, I just knew she was alive." Click, flash, too late to disappear now. Back at the hospital, the woman remained unconscious. No family had come forward, no press release from Brightcore, just one police officer stationed outside her room, silent and tight-lipped. The doctors said she was stable but sedated. Smoke inhalation, mild burns, and a concussion. They still didn't release her name, but someone upstairs knew. In the shadowed corners of Brightcore's leadership boardroom, a very different kind of meeting was taking place. Men and women in designer suits studied footage of Jack. Rewound, paused, zoomed in. He got her out before the system kicked in, one said, and before the fail-safes were triggered. That wasn't part of the plan. Silence. Then the oldest man in the room, a silver-haired exec with ice-blue eyes, spoke. "Find out who he is, quietly." Back on the ground, Jack was beginning to regret not just walking away. At his locker, he found a note. No envelope, just plain paper. "We saw what you did, thank you. E." No last name, no explanation, but the handwriting, clean, deliberate, elegant, was burned into his memory. It was hers. She knew he saved her. And somewhere in that hospital room, a billionaire was waking up and remembering his face. The beeping of a heart monitor was the only sound in room 418. Light filtered through blinds in thin, sterile stripes. Tubes ran from machines to the woman lying unconscious beneath white sheets, her face peaceful, except for the slight twitch in her brow like she was fighting her way out of a dream. No visitors, no flowers, no name on the chart. The hospital staff whispered they always did. She came in through an emergency. Burns, smoke damage. Security won't say who she is. She's got a private nurse that doesn't talk. Ever. Some say she's a government agent, others an heiress. But no one really knew. No one but the nurse who barely left her side. And Jack. Though he hadn't seen her since that night, Jack found himself circling the hospital every morning, sipping coffee from a paper cup, sitting on the same bench across the street, looking up at her window. He didn't know why he kept coming. He told himself it was to check on her, but deep down there was something else. A tug in his chest, like a puzzle missing its final piece. Then, on the fourth morning, the window shade moved. Not much, just enough. She was awake. Inside, the woman stared blankly at the TV news flickering across the screen. Unidentified woman rescued from Brightcore fire. Authorities remain tight-lipped. Fire suppression systems under federal review. She muted it. Everything hurt. Her chest, her throat, even her memories. But one face was clear. Not a doctor, not a CEO. A janitor, mid-50s, steady hands, warm voice. He'd saved her life. She pressed the nurse call button. "Can you get me?" "Him?" "Who?" She hesitated. "The man who carried me out." Back across the street, Jack didn't know any of this yet. He was tossing breadcrumbs to a fat pigeon and trying not to make eye contact with the news van parked at the corner. Then a security guard stepped out of the hospital. "You Jack Turner?" Jack stood slowly, suspicious. "The lady upstairs asked for you." He blinked. "She's awake?" The guard nodded once. Jack tossed the rest of his coffee and followed. Room 418 was warmer than he expected. Maybe it was the sunlight, or maybe it was her eyes when they met him. Pale green, sharp, like they hadn't missed a thing, even while unconscious. "You," she said, her voice rough but strong. "You saved me." Jack shifted uncomfortably. "Just did what needed doing." She studied him, not with judgment, but curiosity, as if she was trying to remember a dream and realizing it was real. "I was told the fire started near the kitchenette, but it spread too fast." "I thought the same," Jack said. "Didn't feel natural." She nodded slowly. "That's because it wasn't." Jack frowned. "You saying someone said it?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she gestured to the chair beside her bed. "I'm Elena," she said finally. "Elena Harper." He froze. The name hit him like a punch in the chest. Elena Harper, founder and CEO of Brightcore Enterprises, billionaire, tech visionary, ghost to the media. There were only 2 known photos of her online, both 10 years old. He'd pulled her from a fire and hadn't recognized the face of the woman who signed the paychecks. She saw the shock on his face and gave the smallest smile. "I don't show up at company parties." "Apparently," Jack said, trying to find words. "Ma'am, I didn't know." "Good," she said. "I'm tired of people knowing." Silence fell. She looked away for a moment. "They tried to kill me, Jack." His eyes narrowed. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." She adjusted her pillow, every movement slow and deliberate. "Whoever it was, they bypassed the fire system, knew I was working late, knew I'd be alone." Jack sat back, absorbing it. "Why call me up here?" "Because I need someone I can trust." He laughed once, dry, surprised. "You don't even know me." "You ran into a burning building for a stranger. That tells me everything I need." That quieted him. She continued, "Everyone else in that building either wants something from me or fears me. But you didn't even want credit." Jack stood. "Look, I'm just a janitor." "Not anymore." "What? You're going to help me find out who did this?" He stared at her. She wasn't joking. Before he could respond, her private nurse entered. "Ms. Harper, the board has requested a statement. They're pressuring the PR team." "Tell them I'm resting," she snapped, "and close the door." The nurse hesitated, then obeyed. Elena turned back to Jack. "You saved my life, Jack Turner. Now help me take it back." By the end of the week, Jack Turner was on every news station in the city. They called him the Janitor Savior. Grainy security footage ran on a loop. Him carrying a limp figure down the stairwell, emerging from smoke like some kind of forgotten war hero. He hated it. Reporters camped outside his building. Neighbors suddenly remembered his name. People offered to buy him drinks, shake his hand, even pitch him interview deals. One woman shoved a book contract in his face. "You're the American dream," she insisted. Jack just kept walking. He didn't do it for attention. He wasn't sure why he did it, other than it was the right thing, and no one else had. But Brightcore called. More precisely, the board called. A black car picked him up and took him straight to the Brightcore tower, still scorched at the top but mostly untouched below. The lobby gleamed like nothing had ever happened, a strange contrast to the yellow tape still flapping on the 28th floor. He was ushered up to a sleek glass conference room on the 26th floor, where 5 people in expensive suits waited for him. They looked like mannequins in a designer store, too polished, too still. "Mr. Turner," said one, a woman in a navy skirt suit with immaculately sculpted cheekbones, "we wanted to personally thank you for your bravery." "Just did my job," Jack muttered. "Exactly, and that's what makes it heroic." Another board member, younger, with slicked back hair and a fake smile, leaned forward. "There are rumors we'd like to control, and your cooperation would help immensely." Jack frowned. What kind of cooperation? "Media appearances, a public statement that the fire was an unfortunate electrical accident, that the emergency systems delayed but eventually worked." He stared at them. "That's not what happened." A beat of silence. "You understand, Mr. Turner, Brightcore's reputation is delicate. Any perception of negligence would be bad for business," Jack finished. The fake smiles faltered. He stood. "I didn't come here to lie. I came here because someone tried to kill your CEO. And from the looks of this room, I'm guessing one of you knows exactly who." No one moved. He walked out without another word. Back in the hospital, Elena watched the live feed on mute. Jack stormed out of the boardroom, pushing past cameras. She smiled. He hadn't sold out, which meant she was right about him. The next morning, Elena Harper signed herself out of the hospital against medical advice. She walked slowly, her side bandaged, every breath a dull ache. But her eyes burned with something sharper than pain, purpose. A private driver met her curbside. The press had no clue she was up, let alone walking, just how she liked it. Back at her estate, a sprawling glass and stone fortress tucked behind gated hills, she ignored the chaos inside. Lawyers, PR agents, and assistants scrambled for updates. She waved them off. "Tell the board I'll speak when I'm ready, not before." In her office, she locked the door, turned off her phone, and opened her laptop. There was only one name she searched for: Jack Turner. What she found confirmed everything her instincts had told her. Veteran, volunteer firefighter, divorced, no criminal record, quiet, reliable, invisible, the kind of man the world doesn't notice until it's on fire. She hit print. That same afternoon, Jack returned to his shift. He needed to do something normal, sweep a floor, mop a hallway, feel like himself again. Fame made his skin itch. He barely finished his second hallway when a security guard handed him a sealed envelope. Inside was a note. "Meet me at Pier 9, 7 p.m. Come alone. E." The pier was quiet by sundown. Cold wind swept off the water, carrying the scent of rust and salt and diesel. Jack stood near an abandoned loading dock, hands in his jacket, watching the sun die over the horizon. Then headlights flared behind him. Elena stepped out of the car, dressed in black and moving carefully, but not timidly. The wind caught her hair as she approached. "You came," she said. "You didn't leave much of a choice." "Didn't want to," she smiled slightly. "I like people who don't do what they're told." Jack crossed his arms. "What is this?" "A partnership. Pretty dramatic place for a business pitch." "Not business," she said. "Something else." She handed him a manila folder. Inside were photos, surveillance stills of Brightcore's server rooms, fire suppression schematics, access logs from the night of the fire. "This is internal. Someone high up overrode the safety systems." Jack flipped through the pages, his brow tightening. "You think it's one of your boards?" "I know it is. I just don't know who. Yet." Jack looked up. "Why me?" "Because you don't belong, which means no one will suspect you." You'll see things others don't. You already do. And if I say no? She shrugged. Then I owe you my life, and I'll go back to being hunted. Jack closed the folder. He looked out over the water, then back at the woman whose life he had carried through smoke and fire. All right, he said quietly. Let's find out who tried to kill you. Jack Turner never imagined he'd be drinking coffee in a billionaire's kitchen. Not some commercial space with granite counters for show. No, this was Elena Harper's real kitchen. Sleek, yes, modern, sure, but lived in. Mugs with tiny chips, a handwritten recipe taped inside a cabinet door, a small radio tuned to an old jazz station. The woman herself, wrapped in a cashmere sweater, sat across from him at a solid oak table with two steaming mugs between them. This is how I work, she said. Not boardrooms, not committees, face to face. Jack sipped the coffee, strong, unpretentious, like her. You've got a lot of enemies, he said. I've got a lot of power. That's how it works. Jack set his mug down. You said someone on your board tried to kill you. That's a hell of a thing to throw out over caffeine. Elena didn't flinch. I built Brightcore from a rented basement and 2 laptops. No investors, no silver spoon. But once we grew, I had to let others in. The board, most of them are old money, corporate sharks. I needed them to go global. And now they want you gone? They want control. The fire was a message, a warning. Step aside or we'll finish the job. Jack leaned back. So why not call the cops? She raised an eyebrow. And hand over my company's soul to people who already know how to game the system. The police won't find the truth. They'll find the truth, one that gets wrapped, filed, and forgotten. Jack exhaled, slow. So what do you want from me exactly? I want you inside, quietly. No one notices the janitor. He gave a dry laugh. That's the whole job description. You'll have access to places no executive can move through without triggering red flags. I've already flagged key departments, compliance, IT, legal. Someone's covering tracks. You'll watch, listen, and bring me what they think is buried. Jack looked at her for a long moment. You trust me that much? No, she said. I trust what you've already done. A moment passed. He picked up the folder again. Then I guess I'm back on the payroll. 3 days later, Jack was back at Brightcore. Not as a janitor, but close. His badge was upgraded, his uniform sharpened, his title, Facilities Compliance Liaison, a fancy way of saying watchdog in disguise. To most employees, he was still an invisible man. That was the plan. What they didn't know was that Jack's mop now had a tiny audio receiver hidden in the handle. His cart had a compartment for file scans, and he was now reporting directly to the most powerful woman in the company, off the record. His first target, IT security. Jack noticed it immediately. James Pike, head of infrastructure, mid-30s, ex-military, all sharp eyes and 2 perfect smiles. He didn't blink when Jack came in to inspect floor panel locks, but made 2 calls within 10 minutes. That same afternoon, Elena reviewed internal access logs on her private server. Someone had deleted backup files for sprinkler override logs, remotely and just after the fire. And the access code? Pike's. I thought so, Jack said. He was nervous the moment I showed up. Elena nodded. Don't confront him, not yet. Let's see who he's reporting to. That night, Jack took a photo of a post-it on Pike's screen, 12B, drop Thurs. He passed it to Elena. She smiled. 12B is our old satellite storage unit. I haven't used it in years. Thursday came. Jack waited inside storage 12B. Lights off. At 6:42 p.m., the door opened. But it wasn't Pike. It was Elaine Merritt, Brightcore's general counsel, high-powered, ice-veined, and always 5 steps ahead of everyone. She opened a locked case and tucked in a slim black USB stick. Then she glanced over her shoulder. That's when Jack made a noise. Elaine froze. "Who's there?" He stepped into the light. "Evening, Ms. Merritt." Her face didn't flinch. "Mr. Turner, what an unexpected surprise." Jack nodded toward the case. "Funny place for legal files." She closed it slowly. "You have no idea what you're involved in." "Enlighten me." Her eyes narrowed. "Leave it alone, Jack. Walk away while you still can." Then she walked past him, not another word. He waited 5 minutes, then took the USB and slipped it into his inner pocket. Back at Elena's estate, she plugged it into a secure laptop. Her breath caught. Inside the USB, a full audit trail of illegal transactions, board members shifting company assets into shell corporations, likely to collapse the company and buy it back cheap. Jack looked at her. You still want to do this?" She nodded. "More than ever. Because now it wasn't just attempted murder, it was a coup." Jack stood at the mirror, tying a tie for the first time in years. The knot wasn't perfect, neither was the collar, but the man staring back at him had changed. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. Elena had given him more than access. She'd given him a mission, a second chance at being someone who made a difference, someone who mattered. By the end of the week, Jack had cracked open more secrets inside Brightcore than the company's own internal audits. Hidden shell accounts, ghost invoices, employees long on leave, still drawing full salaries, many linked to board members and their inner circles. It was a web, carefully woven, easily missed, until someone like Jack, someone invisible, traced the strands. One evening, while reviewing reports in Elena's private office, she slid a small box toward him. He opened it. Inside, a brand new ID badge with his photo and the title, Special Investigations Advisor. "You've earned this," she said softly. Jack stared at it. "I never asked for this." "Exactly why you deserve it." Jack pocketed the badge. "Let's burn the rest of this web." Elena had always suspected someone at the top was orchestrating the collapse, but she never expected it to be Richard Kessler, Brightcore's founding board member, the man who'd written her first check, the man who used to call her Kiddo. But when Jack traced the offshore transactions back far enough, Richard's name came up again and again. It wasn't subtle anymore. He was moving fast, selling off Brightcore subsidiaries, restructuring leadership behind closed doors, preparing for the kill shot. He didn't expect Elena to still be alive, or for her to have allies. Elena called for a private board meeting. She told no one why, no agenda, just mandatory attendance. Inside the glass-walled boardroom, tension crackled in the air. Elena entered slowly, a cane in hand. Jack stood silently behind her. "I know what you've been doing," she said, looking directly at Kessler. He didn't blink. "What are you talking about?" "You siphoned company assets into dummy corporations, disabled our fire systems, and tried to make me disappear, all for a hostile buyout." Kessler smirked. "Do you have proof?" Jack stepped forward, dropped a flash drive on the table. Every file, every payment, every override code, all traceable, all copied. The board murmured, some gasped. "You always underestimated the janitor," Elena said. Richard stood. "You think this proves anything? I own half this room." But no one stood with him. Security entered quietly behind him. Elena didn't shout. She didn't need to. Richard Kessler, you're hereby removed from Brightcore's board, effective immediately and under investigation by federal authorities. As Kessler was led away, Jack leaned toward Elena. Is it over? She smiled faintly. Almost. Weeks passed. The fire damage was repaired. The air at Brightcore felt different, lighter, clean. Elena returned to work with new strength. The board was restructured. The media spun tales of corporate sabotage and heroic loyalty. But one story stayed quiet. Jack's. He turned down every interview, every book deal, every headline. He didn't want a legacy. He wanted peace. Still, Elena had one more surprise. She invited him to her private estate again, this time with a contract. You've proven more than loyalty, she said. You've proven vision. I want you to lead Brightcore's new internal integrity division. Salary, team, full authority. Jack stared at the offer, then at her. I'm no suit, Elena. You're something better. You're honest. He thought for a long time, then smiled. Maybe, but first I've got a night shift to finish. She laughed. Still cleaning floors? Nah, he said, standing. Just finishing what I started. That night, Jack walked through the building one more time. Quiet halls, clean air. He paused at the door of the office he'd pulled her from. The scorch marks were gone, but the memory remained. He smiled to himself. Sometimes the smallest people leave the biggest footprints, and sometimes the janitor saves the queen, not for a reward, but because it's right. Then he turned off the lights. Fade to black.